So today I'm really excited because I get to talk to you about Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I was really excited to read this because I super enjoyed the Crows Duology that she wrote, and I had no idea that this was part of like an existing universe already, but I was really excited to pick up the very first book in the Grisha-verse and kind of see where it all started. So, just to give you a quick overview of what takes place in this book, in case you haven't heard already, Alina Starkov, who, when we first meet her, is an orphan growing up in a noble's house who has offered to take in a few children who have been orphaned by the wars that are plaguing this country. It's there where she meets her very best friend, Mal. Her next leg of the journey is they've both joined the army, and we see them getting ready to go off on a mission, kind of side by side. They're in different parts of the army, but they're moving within the same larger unit. And it is during this outing where they're together where she discovers that she's super special. She's what's called a sun summoner, where there are people who use magic who are called Grisha. None of them really have the same kind of ability that she does. So that then brings in the Darkling, who is kind of in charge of all the Grisha. He runs what they call the Second Army. And he communicates with the king a lot, and he's super powerful. So he kind of tells her about what's going on and brings her back to what I think they call the Little Palace, which is almost kind of like a boarding school. Grisha are picked up at a very young age and taught their skills. And Alina's kind of been, can't decide if I want to pronounce it Alina or Elena. I'm going to start saying Elena. Since Elena didn't know that she was a Grisha, she couldn't have started studying until now anyway. She not only has to come to terms with understanding her power, but also this new world that she's put in, and some of the political machinations going on. Between learning her new magic and figuring out her place in this whole political hierarchy, lots of adventures ensue. So this is probably one of the best examples that I've read recently of a book that is very clear in its narrative. We only follow one character and we only have one narrative voice the whole way. It's all told in third person past tense with a focus on Elena. We never see anybody else's thoughts or separate activities that happen without her being there. So as far as social complexities go, there is a little bit of kind of political intrigue, political machinations, stuff like that, like people vying for power. But I would say what the most kind of troublesome social aspect is that not once but twice we see older men / men that are higher in this hierarchy being interested in females lower in the hierarchy than them. You know, there is a little bit of thought of how much coercion goes into that. You know, are there any outward statements about that? Is it more of like a passive thing? But you know, it is something to think about. And from the books I read later in the series, I know at least one regrets her actions, but it's all a very subtle thing. Never is there any like, oh, you have to because I'm so and so. There are questions about, is she drawn to him because of his power? Is she drawn to him because of his high-ranking status? Stuff like that. So I just thought that was interesting, and I don't know if that might be troublesome for some people, so I just thought I'd mention it in this section. So now for my favorite section, romance. This has about the same kind of romance that you would imagine from a YA novel, in that nothing super intimate happens. There is one passionate kiss where maybe more things are gonna happen, but then they don't. But I do like that the romance is still handled pretty well. It's not overwhelming. There are just a few thoughts here and there of, oh, I think I like this person. Oh, I'm pretty sure I like this person. Stuff like that. So it's not overwhelming. The focus is still mostly on the plot, but it is very much there. All right, so I was actually kind of surprised at the lack of violence in here, because the book opens with her being in the army. The scene in which she realizes that she has powers does get quite bloody. She only discovers them whenever she's trying to protect her best friend Mal, and she reacts super strongly because some other people are being torn apart by these disgusting and terrifying giant bat creatures. So that scene was a little bloody. At least if I'm remembering correctly, no other humans come to harm in the rest of the book. There is a hunt for this mythical stag. The scene where his death is described as a little sad. It's a little disheartening and kind of makes you face your own mortality, kind of. But so it's not violent in like a bloody gross kind of way, but it is kind of unnerving in that making you think of the end kind of way. But overall, I would say that the violence element wasn't overwhelming in this book. right? Woo, we're to my favorite part where I get to just tell you about my opinions. And I was really trying to like hold it in because I really ended up enjoying this book. I find it weird because there are lots of different good things I can pull away from a story. I can enjoy all sorts of different stories. And I was so excited about this book, and the pacing was so good, and the characters were so good that I read this in 2 days. I usually average about a week per book, so I was really surprised. I haven't read a book in like 2 or 3 days since high school when I was able to just sit around and read. So it's been a long time since I've read a book so quickly. That must mean that I enjoyed it a lot, right? But if I try to go back and put my finger on different things that were like great or stand out or unique about this book, it's kind of hard for me to point to anything. I think the way that the Grisha magic works is really unique and really awesome, but I wasn't wowed because I had already heard about it in the Six of Crows Duology. And the characters were kind of interesting. I think the real draw for me and the reason why I read through it so fast, it is such a good example of YA fantasy, where you have your seemingly very average person who finds out that she's special, learns how to be special, and then maybe finds out that things weren't quite what she was expecting, and so then has more trouble, which you can imagine because this is a trilogy, so there's gonna be 2 more books. So it's not she finds out she's special and she lives happily ever after. There's a few more steps in between that. I hope that that's how the series ends, but actually from what I'm remembering in some of the other Grisha-verse books I read, I don't think that's true. But anyway, but I think it's just that it was very well written. The plot moves fast enough that you keep wanting to say one more chapter. But 2, like it wasn't, I don't know, never got too complicated that it had to slow down and think about things. Yeah, I mean, I guess it was just the right level of engaging that I wanted to keep reading more, but I didn't have to stop and think about what was going on, or I didn't want to stop and think of like bigger issues that this kind of let us look at, but through the fictional lens. Like it was just the right amount. I feel like that might sound like I'm saying something bad. I'm not. It was a great book. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to reading the next one. All right, so those were my thoughts on Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. To put it into a too long didn't watch, it's a great example of what YA fantasy is and can be. It's got a great magic system, the characters are intriguing and fun to follow, and it's just a great book all around. I flew through it pretty fast, so I might even recommend it for like a good weekend book or vacation book or something like that if YA fantasy is really your jam. But that's about all I can think of to say about Shadow and Bone, so I'll just thank you so much for watching the video and hope that you're having an awesome day, and see you again next time. Bye for now.